Your tap water costs you about $2 for 1,000 gallons. Nestle pays $200 per year to pump 130 million gallons of pristine spring water, then sells it back to you for nearly $8 billion. Let me say that again. They pay $200, they make $8 billion from water that doesn't belong to them. But here's where it gets insane. In Flint, Michigan, parents were bathing their children in bottled water because their taps were poisoned with lead. They paid $200 per month for water they couldn't even drink. 2 hours north, a Nestle facility was pumping 130 million gallons of Michigan's purest water for $200 per year. While 100,000 Flint residents relied on bottled water donations, Nestle was bottling their state's cleanest water and selling it for profit. And when people asked Nestle to help fix Flint's pipes, they donated some bottles and called it charity. This isn't corporate greed, this is corporate theft. And I'm about to show you how they pulled off the biggest heist in human history, in broad daylight. 1969. Nestle was a food company making chocolate and baby formula. Then their executives had a realization: water is free, plastic bottles are cheap, but people will pay premium prices for pure spring water. So they bought Vittel, a small French mineral water brand, to test the model. It worked. 1992, Nestle dropped $2.6 billion to acquire Perrier. But they weren't buying a brand, they were buying something far more valuable: the springs themselves, the aquifers, the land above them. And this is where Nestle's strategy became genius and terrifying. Their CEO said it out loud in 1994. Springs are like petroleum. You can always build a chocolate factory, but springs, you have or you don't have. Translation: lock down every water source you can find before anyone realizes water will be worth more than oil. So they went on a 30-year buying spree. 1998, San Pellegrino in Italy. Late 90s, launched Pure Life in developing countries. 2002, formalized Nestle's water as a core division. 2000s, Poland Spring, Arrowhead, Ice Mountain, Deer Park. By 2018, 51 brands, 34 countries, 100 facilities, nearly $8 billion in annual revenue. They became the largest bottled water company on earth. But the real genius, they paid almost nothing for the actual water. Michigan, $200 per year for 130 million gallons. California, $524 per year for 62 million gallons. Pakistan, virtually nothing. The Supreme Court found they paid no amount. Nestle cracked the code. Own the source, not the water. Then the water is legally yours forever. In 2000, the United Nations held the World Water Forum to address the global water crisis. Environmental groups pushed to declare water a universal human right. Nestle sent lobbyists to fight it. They won. Instead of a right, water was designated a need, a semantic change that opened the door for corporations to commodify it. Nobody noticed. It didn't make headlines, but it was a corporate coup that changed everything. 5 years later, Nestle CEO Peter Brabeck-Letmathe went on camera and said the quiet part out loud. Water should not be a public right, water should have a market value. He called the idea of free water access extreme. Think about that. The CEO of the world's largest water company called universal access to water extremism. His vision? Privatize all water, let corporations control it, let the market decide who gets water and who doesn't. And then Nestle spent 20 years executing that vision. California. For 29 years, Nestle pumped water from Strawberry Creek in the San Bernardino National Forest. Their permit expired in 1988. They kept pumping anyway. 62 million gallons per year, $524 annual fee. During California's worst droughts, families face lawn watering bans. Strawberry Creek dried up. The forest ecosystem collapsed. Nobody noticed for 3 decades. When journalists finally exposed it, Nestle had already made hundreds of millions. The fine? There wasn't one. Michigan. Early 2000s, Nestle's pumping dried up the Dead River watershed. Wetlands disappeared, fish habitats destroyed, residents sued. Nestle fought them in court for nearly a decade, burying locals under legal fees and expert testimony. During the trial, an independent scientist Nestle hired was caught fabricating data to hide the environmental damage. The judge was furious. He called the scientist a company man for Nestle. After 10 years, residents finally won. The court ruled Nestle was solely responsible for draining the dead river. But by then, Nestle had already pumped billions of gallons. Ontario, Canada. 2016. The town of Central Wellington needed drinking water for 30,000 residents. They tried to buy a local well. Nestle outbid them. Using a shell company, Nestle purchased the well the town desperately needed for public drinking water. A corporation outbid an entire town for its own water. Town officials, we can't compete with Nestle's money. The community was left with nothing while Nestle bottled their water for profit. Oregon, the resistance. But not every community rolled over. 2015, Nestle wanted to build a massive bottling plant in Cascade Locks, Oregon. They promised 50 jobs and offered to pump over 100 million gallons per year from a local spring. The economically struggling town was tempted, so Nestle poured over $100,000 into a local political action committee to sway opinion, lobbying, ads, pressure campaigns. But residents and Native American tribes fought back hard. They packed town halls, organized protests, raised hell. In May 2016, Hood River County held a ballot measure. Should they ban large-scale water bottling entirely? Despite Nestle's six-figure lobbying campaign, voters approved the ban by 69%. Oregon's governor backed the people and blocked a key water rights swap Nestle needed. Nestle was forced to abandon the project entirely. It was a David versus Goliath victory, proof that organized communities can fight back. Pakistan, the courtroom. Now here's where it becomes truly evil. 2018, Pakistan's Supreme Court ordered a forensic audit of Nestle's operations. The Chief Justice himself decided to attend the hearings after visiting a Nestle plant that had been given public land for free. When he tasted the bottled water from the plant, he was disgusted by the quality. In open court, he made an announcement. "I have quit drinking bottled water. I urge all citizens of Pakistan to do the same." And then the audit results came in. Between 2013 and 2017, Nestle extracted 4.43 billion liters of groundwater. Cost to Nestle? The court found they paid no amount to authorities. Water wasted in purification? 1.9 billion liters. 43% dumped as waste. The judges were outraged. They called Nestle's profit margins unjustified. But the worst part wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the villages. In Bhatti Dilwan, Punjab, the water table dropped hundreds of feet after Nestle's plant started operating. Wells that had sustained families for generations ran dry. Children were forced to drink brown, foul-smelling water from shallow, contaminated pits. Kids got violently sick, vomiting, diarrhea, waterborne diseases. And Nestle's solution? Sell Pure Life bottled water back to the same villages whose aquifer they drained. Most families couldn't afford it, so children drank poison while Nestle bottled the clean water 3 miles away. By 2020, Nestle faced lawsuits, protests, boycotts worldwide, so they made a brilliant move. 2021 sold their entire North American water business for $4.3 billion. Media headline, Nestle exits controversial water business. Activists celebrated, we won. But here's what actually happened. Nestle sold the controversial operations, the ones getting sued, to private equity. The new company, Blue Triton. Same wells, same extraction, same permits, new name. Nestle kept Perrier and San Pellegrino, profitable brands without baggage, and walked away with $4.3 billion. They didn't lose. They executed a perfect exit. Blue Triton is pumping right now, today, this minute. Nobody's paying attention because Nestle sold it. Stop reading for a second. Go to your kitchen, turn on your tap. That water, flowing freely, costing you pennies, feels like it'll always be there. But here's what you need to know. Nestle spent 50 years proving that you can steal public water in broad daylight and get away with it. Nestle built the playbook, and every corporation is copying it. Right now, today, there are companies buying extraction rights to aquifers across America, Africa, Asia for pennies. By the time your well runs dry, the contracts will already be signed. So here's my question for you. How long until your tap runs dry? and the only water available is in bottles sold by the company that drained your aquifer. Because that's not a future scenario. That's Pakistan, that's Bhatti Dilwan, that's Flint, and it's coming to your town next. The water isn't disappearing, it's just being bottled. And the companies doing it? They're not hiding anymore. They're just getting started.